1918 was the first worldwide mass vaccination program. Dr. Eleanor McBean, author of The Poison Needle, was a young girl during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. As she points out, the soldiers were getting sick and dying because they were given anywhere from 14 to 25 vaccine shots during the First World War. The First World War was of a shorter duration than anticipated, so the vaccine makers were unable to use up all their vaccines. As they were and still are in business for profit, they decided to sell it to the rest of the population. So they drummed up the largest vaccination campaign in history. There were no epidemics to justify it, so they used other tricks. Their propaganda claimed the soldiers were coming home from foreign countries with all kinds of diseases, and that everyone must have all of the shots on the market. The people believed them because, first of all, they wanted to believe their doctors, and second, the returning soldiers certainly had been sick and dying. The people didn't know it was from doctor-made vaccine diseases, as the army doctors don't tell them things like that. Many of the returned soldiers were disabled for life by these drug-induced diseases. Many were insane from post-vaccinal encephalitis, but the doctors called that shell shock, even though many of the soldiers had never left American soil. The conglomerate of disease brought on by the many poison vaccines baffled the doctors, as they had never had a vaccination spree before which used so many different vaccines. The new disease they had created had the symptoms of all of the diseases they had injected into people. There was high fever, extreme weakness, abdominal rash, intestinal disturbance, lung congestion, chill and fever, swollen sore throat clogged with the false membrane, and the choking suffocation because of difficulty breathing, followed by gasping and death, after which the body turned black from stagnant blood that had been deprived of oxygen in the suffocation stages. In the early days, they called it the Black Death. They wanted to direct the blame away from themselves, so they called it Spanish influenza. It was certainly not of Spanish origin, and the Spanish people resented the implications that the worldwide scourge of that day should be blamed on them. But the name stuck, and American medical doctors and the vaccine makers were not suspected of the crime of this widespread devastation, the 1918 flu epidemic. Eleanor wrote, "That pandemic dragged on for 2 years, kept alive with the addition of more poison drugs administered by doctors who tried to suppress the symptoms. As far as she could find out, the flu hit only the vaccinated. Those who had refused the shots escaped the flu. Her family had refused all the vaccinations, so they remained well at the time. They seemed to be the only family which didn't get the flu, so her parents went from house to house doing what they could to look after the sick, as it was impossible to get a doctor then. If it were possible for germs, bacteria, virus, or bacilli to cause disease, they had plenty of opportunity to attack her parents when they were spending many hours a day in the sick rooms. But they didn't get the flu, and they didn't bring any germs home to attack the children or cause anything. None of her family had the flu, not even a sniffle." She wrote, "When I see people cringe when someone near them sneezes or coughs, I wonder how long it will take them to find out that they can't catch it, whatever it is. The only way they can get a disease is to develop it themselves by wrong eating, drinking, smoking, or doing some other things which cause internal poisoning and lowered vitality."